Hi everybody, this is Richard from HK Audio. We're at the Arena in Trier today for a concert by Deep Purple, and I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Hodgkinson, who is the band's monitor engineer. Rob, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
How's it going? How's the tour been?
It's fine, actually. It's been fairly straightforward. It's always good touring Germany. The crews are good, the venues are generally good. We've got a good team from TDA based in Essen with us, who we've been working with since 2002, so it's like a big family affair. And also we're nearly ready for the German Christmas markets, which is always a good time.
Always a highlight, yeah. It's been about a month for you on the road so far, all smooth, plain sailing up to this point?
Yeah, apart from the catering in Italy, it's been wonderful. Now we're in Germany, it's good.
German hospitality, you can't beat it, can
absolutely.
You? Okay, so tell us about the current tour, how it's been for you, how it's all working.
This sort of tour is fairly straightforward for me because I've got my own technician as well, so I have a limited amount of gear to set up. The stage size is the same every day, so the only thing that really changes is venue acoustics. So I need to do a bit of adjustment generally on the low frequencies, and in some venues the mix will change slightly depending on what the band are hearing back from front of house as well. So for me, this is a sort of tour where it generally is plain sailing. I earn my money on kind of dodgy tours of South America and things where I spend most of my days with my head in an amp rack fixing things.
I mean, I imagine a monitor engineer's job is generally a bit more stressful than the current tour that you're doing, isn't it? Yeah,
it certainly can be. I mean, things have improved a lot over the years because we now carry the HK system with us on sort of both rigs. So I've got, apart from my side fills, I've got consistency all the time. We've got two systems, an A and B system, which we use in various parts of the world, and that side of things I know is covered now. So we carry our own microphones, our own cabling, our own monitor system. The things that vary, sort of, it depends. If we're, say, in Mexico or something, we hire local side fills, and there's a difference there, but the core of it is the same. In the old days, we used to have different equipment at each gig, which could be challenging at times.
Yeah, and now you're carrying the same rig around.
Now we carry the same rig around the world with our own power supply and everything. So it's improved things a lot.
Yeah. So before we go into the HK audio gear that you're using, just tell us a bit about you. How did you get into doing what you are today, and what is the journey that led you to this point?
I started off probably when I was 17, buying a reel-to-reel tape recorder and recording my own stuff and my friends, and then when the first available mixers came out that were quite cheap, myself and a guy called Graham Lees, who was for a long time the monitor engineer with Radiohead, we got a little mixer and started recording at my parents' house. Then bands would go, oh, here's £30 for kind of coming to record us. So you're like, okay, this is better than working for a living. So, and then I worked in studios and PA, both front of house and monitors. How I got the Deep Purple gig was 1995. I got the job for a year doing Tony Iommi's Black Sabbath, and the bass guitar technician on Sabbath was a guy called Charlie Lewis, who then became Deep Purple's production manager and asked me if I wanted to do the job. I thought about it for a picosecond and said yes. And it was one tour, but it's not finished, and that was 20 years ago. So no complaints, they work enough, and as Ian said, they work enough to keep us all quite happy, but not enough to burn us all out, which is good.
And with Deep Purple, it's nearly 50 years now. You never know how long they might carry on for, do you?
Well, 20 years ago we were thinking, oh, this can't carry on much longer, and there seems to be no plan to stop at all. There's a lot of gigs coming in for next year already, which is great. I think we hear rumours of Japan and Russia, and I know there are a lot of gigs coming up for summer festivals in July, June, sort of a lot more Germany again. I would imagine we'll play France again. We've got 2 shows coming up in France sort of shortly, which we are really proud to be doing, but somewhat nervous.
Sure,
for understandable reasons.
Given the circumstances, You mentioned that you've also done front of house work and stuff before. Why did you move into monitor engineering work?
Because somebody pays you money and you go, oh, this is a good gig. And also, if you're a decent monitor engineer, you can pick up more work. Front of house engineers are 10 a penny. Obviously some better than others. But this is the kind of the job that everyone wants because it's the glamorous job. But to be specifically a monitor engineer, you can pick up a lot of work. Because a lot of people just like, oh no, I don't want to do the monitors, I want to be out there. And so you get a lot of monitor engineers who'll just sit at the desk and be bored. And a lot of bands say this as well. They say, oh, I look around at the monitor engineer and he's reading a book or doing something else. Well, you can't do that. You're being paid. You've got to be focused. You've got to watch body language. You've got to know what somebody wants before they know they want it. And that's the trick. Yeah. And I really enjoy that side of things, just the kind of the body language and the psychology of things as well.
So how do you know that? And what are you doing during a show to make sure that you can know that before they even know that?
I'm watching them. I'm watching them closely to see if they look like there's something bothering them, or see any little kind of hints of... You can pick it all up. And also what I'm doing during the show is, because I've been doing these guys so long, I tend to know what they need, so I'm just doing fine adjustments all the way through. For example, I'm riding solos. That's the obvious thing to do. If, say, Don goes on to sort of very low frequency solo stuff on his organ, I know they're not going to be able to hear it as well over the bass end coming back from the room, so I'll push that a little bit. If there are any particular cues that I feel that they need, or they look like they're not hearing properly, I'll just ride whatever it is that they're cueing from. And generally watch them. I mean, this is the thing doing monitors, you've got to be really attentive. Yeah. And it can be one of the most difficult things, because our show's nearly 2 hours, and quite often I don't get any requests for anything because I'm doing it anyway. But I've got to keep focused for 2 hours, and that can be quite tiring. When you've finished, actually, it's quite nice. I quite enjoy doing the loadout, because then there's no brain involved. It's just throwing some boxes around and a bit of physical activity. And yeah, I like it.
So it's almost a performance what you're doing then, and you're building up, almost like the band to a sort of showtime.
Yeah.
And the adrenaline's kicking in, and then afterwards it's a big rush and you're done.
Yeah, big rush and you're done. Yeah. And it's interesting, actually, because most of us say it, always before the show, you feel really tired. And you wish you would feel like that when you'd finished the loadout. But you don't. When you finish the loadout, you're like, right. So it's impossible to go to bed for an hour or two, even if it may be sort of 1 or 2 in the morning. So your body clock tends to shift. We had a day off yesterday, and I went to bed at 10 o'clock at night and lay there till 1 in the morning, thinking, I wish I could go to sleep. And it takes a little bit of adjusting when you get home after a tour as well, because not only is everything done for you, whereas we've got caterers there, there's beers on the bus and things like that, and of course when you get home there's the dog to walk and meals to cook and all that sort of thing, and it takes a week or so to adjust. And most of us who've been on the road for a long time sort of know that, and you get better at dealing with it as well. And it can be difficult. I mean, some people don't suit the life at all. Some people do. You grow into it. You get more experience, and it's the same thing with doing monitors for a band. You get a sort of sixth sense of knowing if somebody will want something, or even if something is going to go wrong. I don't know how you do it, but you just think something's not right, and you kind of pick up on things. And you need that. You absolutely need that.
It's almost a kind of sixth sense that you develop.
Yeah, I've no idea how it happens or anything like that, but you do develop it. Whereas, I do front of house for Don's band, and front of house compared to monitors I find it just really easy. Because you've just got left and right, it's one mix, it's dead simple. Whereas this, you've got to be, without being in the physical position of the person on stage, you have to know what they're hearing. And obviously you can monitor what's going through their speakers, but you can't monitor what their surrounding audio environment is like. And that again comes with experience, I think.
Sure. So based on that, what kind of advice would you give a young up-and-coming engineer, be it a front-of-house person or a monitor engineer, looking to kind of get to the level that you're at now? What should they do to kind of get up to that really professional level where bands are asking them to come back on the road with them again and again?
Be attentive, work on your people skills, and develop an ear for frequencies. You need to develop a real good ear for frequencies. Now I kind of just know if something's not right. I can hear it, and I can lock absolutely onto it, even if it's a really quiet sound from the other side of the stage. I'm used to hearing what this stage should sound like. I don't rely on my cue wedge very much at all. I just listen to the natural sound coming off the stage, and if something's wrong, I can tell. And you need to develop that, and it's practice. You need to work with equalizers and know when you've taken too much out, or things like that. A lot of people make, especially when I see racks of graphic equalizers or graphics now on digital desks, is things have been chopped too much. If you find you're taking out more than 3 or 4 dB of a group of frequencies, then there's something wrong, and you need to go and identify what that is, because you start to run into sort of phase incoherence and all sorts of things, and it becomes messier and messier. Because it's messy, the band can't hear it as well, so they ask for more, so you end up taking more frequencies out and dig yourself into a hole. So you've got to know when to stop, especially with equalization. Okay. For example, these side fills, there's a certain control system on them where you can adjust the mid-range coupling. When we first started off on the first show, I found I was taking up too much low mids. So I had a word with Sven, who's the front of house guy. I just said, can you alter the mid-range coupling, take minus 6 dB off? Yeah, no problem. So all those frequencies I'd taken out, you can put back in again. So you run it as flat as possible, basically, and it will sound better. And I find as well, with lots and lots of wedges, that can make a mess. You use a nice set of side fills, rely on them a little bit. Don't need to tell the musicians there's nothing in their wedge, and it'll sound better. Yeah.
And then, so tell us about the HK Audio kit that you're using on this tour, and well, you've been using it for years with the band now, haven't you?
Yeah, I think my first encounter with HK Audio was in 1999 when we did a John Lord tour, and that's when I first met Christian Stump, who was then working for HK Audio, and we were using the VT series. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I thought, ooh, because we'd been looking for some reliable drum fill system and reliable monitor system for quite a long while, and been through all sorts of things, some better than others, but nothing really right. And so I used what was then, I can't remember the name of the bass, but it was a single 18 sort of front loaded, and the VT212, which is a double 12 2-inch cabinet. And they sounded wonderful, and so that's where our association with HK Audio comes from, and I've been using them ever since. And the sister system now is the CT112s and what's the model number of the 18s? I never remember.
The CT118.
CT118, yeah. That's it, yeah. And for Don, the CT115s. And it's great. You just plug them in, turn it up. I've not had to use any EQ on the drum fill at all. And it just sounds great, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah. And the guys in the band seem happy with them too?
Guys in the band are really happy with them. Yeah, no complaints at all. And I say it's a good, reliable system and works well, travels well, well built. The other system, we've got some very old cabinets, HK cabinets, and they're still working fine, still on the same drivers. They probably sound a little better with new drivers, but they're still fine, work well.
Okay, so let's go and take a look at the gear on the stage, shall we?
Okay,
let's do it.
After you.
Okay. We'll just walk round to Ian Paice's drum area here. Shall we thread our way through the kits here? Okay, so this is them, the Contour 118.
Contour 112s and 118s.
Yeah.
We had to slightly modify the poles with judicious use of a hacksaw just to get them to the right size for drum fills, but they work fine. And so far, I've not managed to trap my fingers when I'm putting the speakers on there, which I'm really glad about. But they're a good system. I mean, one person can set this up easily, which to me is quite important, because generally over in Germany you get good stage crews, but some parts of the world it's much easier to do it yourself. So to be able to set it up myself is quite a factor for me.
Sure.
They do the job.
And tell us about the system that they're being powered by and running through.
Well, you've got this nice little amp rack here with the DSM controllers. We've got a main and a spare for everything. We've got the amps up here for Don and a spare there, and the CPQ-10 is driving the drum fills. System gain is for these. I mean, the keyboard wedges are running passive. This is basically a passive top crossover to the mid and high, active between the low and the mid-high units. I've got plus 6 dB on the subs and 0 dB on the tops, and no EQ, and it just sounds really good.
No EQ whatsoever.
No EQ whatsoever.
Was this maybe one of the decisions behind you switching to HK Audio in the first place all those years ago?
Yeah, because it makes a huge difference. Less is more, as they say. The ideal system, you should be able to run it flat and just turn it up. And maybe if you're doing a vocal, you'll probably have to take a little bit out for proximity effects and use your high-pass filters to get rid of any sub-region you don't need, and that's it, basically. I put a little bit of crack sometimes on the drums, just depending on what they want to hear and what the room's like.
Yeah, sure.
So for me, that's perfect. And it all sits nicely in one amp rack. There's enough room in the back that I can leave the cables connected, so I just roll the cables into the back of the rack, shut the doors, and that's the job done.
Job's a good one.
Job's a good one, basically, yeah.
And you generally don't have to do too much tinkering then during the show itself?
Nothing.
No?
Nothing generally, no. Unless something goes wrong, and so far it hasn't.
So far, fingers crossed.
But yeah, the other system we were using, I won't go into any names, but it was just... It was very, very high quality from a very well-known manufacturer, but was producing its low frequencies sort of by the time it got to the audience, but not by the drum kit. And the mid-high units were so ridiculously heavy that they didn't sound as good as these, and they were too heavy, so there was absolutely no point keeping them.
Yeah.
I like this. This will do me. Yeah.
Enough said, really. Well, thank you very, very much for taking the time to talk to us before the show.
My pleasure.
I'm sure
Absolutely,
you're about
my pleasure.
Go and get something to eat.
I'm going to go to catering. Yeah, this is why I do this job, really.
That's the main reason, isn't it? Well, there you go. You're watching HK Audio YouTube. See you later.